What's going on, y'all? It is your girl, Bree Undeniably, checking in for another episode of my new speaker series, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals, where we're discussing development, decision-making, and dedicating yourself to purpose. I am here with a super dope individual. You know that I have given DOPE an acronym for driving on purpose every day, and I am here with Darcy Luoma, who is for sure a dope individual. I am super excited to introduce her, but before I get into that, I'm going to give a couple quick shout outs. First, I love to shout out the space that I'm in. Shout out to Gotham Podcast Studios. They are always hooking it up with the space, audio and visual. So if you are tuned in on YouTube, you'll see this awesome recording space I'm in. If you're listening to the crystal clear sound, that is all Gotham. So thank them very much. I also always love to shout out MC Kicks, though I am not wearing MC Kicks gear right now. They're always supporting, always hooking it up. I do have my MC Kicks Everything Spicy phone case. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. You can find them on Instagram or really anywhere at EMCEEKICKS. And finally, you know that you can get all of your I Am Possible and Dope individual merchandise on my site. That's BrieUndeniably.com. I have that posted everywhere, so you can just click the link, go to shop, and get your I Am Possible or Dope individual merch on my site as well. All right, we are here. I am going to give Darcy the introduction she deserves, and we're going to kick right into it. So I have Darcy Luoma with me, who is a master certified coach, dynamic facilitator, and inspiring motivational speaker. She has worked as director for a U.S. Senator, deputy transition director for a governor, and on the national advance team for 2 U.S. presidential campaigns. As the owner and CEO of Darcy Luoma Coaching and Consulting, LLC, she's worked in 48 industries with 210 organizations and more than 500 individual clients to create high-performing people and teams. The media has named Darcy the region's favorite executive and life coach 4 times. Darcy balances her thriving business with raising her 2 energetic teenage daughters, adventure travel, and competing in triathlons. Welcome, Darcy.
Thank you, Bree. Great to be with you.
It's so great to have you here. I am super excited to jump into everything that you're doing. I mean, clearly you have a glowing resume and list of things that you are doing and doing very, very well. So I'm super excited to jump into that. The way that I love to start to really give you a full introduction is in the counseling community. I like to meet my clients where they're at. I like to do the same thing in the podcasting community so the listeners can get to know a little bit more about you and meet you where you're at by telling us a little bit more about yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I probably first thing, I'm a mom. I have 2 sassy, amazing, independent teenage daughters. They're 14 and 15. We, during COVID on our quarantine, they convinced me to get foster dogs. And so over that year, we had 8 and it was amazing and overwhelming at the same time. I own a coaching and consulting firm that I launched full-time in January of 2013. And everything that we do focuses on creating high-performing people and teams. And so whether it is dealing with people problems, improving communication, handling conflict in a positive way, building trust, leadership, that's my passion, and that's my purpose on this world. And it took me a couple decades to I think I probably knew my purpose, but it took me a couple decades to have the courage to step into it, right? And so I have a team of coaches and consultants and trainers who are amazing and love what I do.
I love to hear that. I mean, that for sure just speaks purpose right there. To love what you do, the purpose is really just built into that. So you just told us a lot about yourself, and there's that very specific piece, the piece where you said it took you maybe a couple of decades to really find this purpose. So I really want to push into that before we go into the business aspect. I really want to push into the pre 2013 Darcy and sort of understand what that developmental stage was like for you. What might have taken so long to really build that confidence or go full force into business?
It's such a great question, because I find with a lot of my coaching clients, I'm not alone on my journey. And so I would say what I knew that I loved looking at team dynamics and communication and how to be effective, regardless of what your role was. But I didn't trust myself, and I didn't have the courage to follow that passion and that purpose. And I think what happened, if I had to bottom line it, Bree, it was some version of this. I graduate. I had a double major in math and German. And I get a phone call from somebody saying, hey, we've got a position we think you'd be great for. Completely in a different role than what I had in my mind. And I'm like, oh, they've got a position. They think I'd be great. Oh my gosh, I better do this. Multiply that times multiple different positions over 20 years. I just gave away my power. And it was for lots of reasons, probably, fear that if I don't say yes, then there's another opportunity won't come. Probably ego, because, oh my gosh, they want me. And probably also just, it was like the path of least resistance.
Right.
It takes a lot more work to define your purpose and figure out what the vision is and create a plan to achieve it. So really for 20 years, I was in the political campaign nonprofit sector. I wasn't miserable. I just definitely was not passionate.
And you're already hitting on something that I know so many of my listeners have felt and could be kind of in that place right now of being in a workspace where it is doing what they need it to do to get through in life, but not doing what they need it to do to feel fulfilled in life. And I think, you touched on ego, which is really interesting. When someone says like, oh, we want you, we think you're great. It's like, okay, well that feels good. That boosts something inside of me. So I want to play on that. So that one can be really tricky, but also, you said trusting yourself and the path of least resistance. And I think that those are two really important pieces that, again, everyone who is on this sort of entrepreneurial journey or just journey to, finding their purpose, it doesn't necessarily have to be in work, but in life in general. Those three pieces are major, major key components in how we are getting there and the decisions we're making to get there and how long it really takes for us to get there. Let's go ahead and actually break those down a little bit more. The trust piece is super intriguing for me. The trusting yourself or not knowing that you trust yourself fully yet to sort of go full force into something. Would you be able to speak a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. It's so interesting because, we all have thoughts, right? Something happens and we have an immediate thought about it. And what I found is a lot of times those thoughts were sabotaging me. So when I would think about, I always had a dream of owning my own business. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. My God, I don't, right? The first thing my first thought, you don't have an MBA. You're not a business owner.
Right.
And those thoughts would continually sabotage me. And it kept me in this place of playing it safe and of not trusting myself. And so when I was running a U.S. Senator's office and for 12 years. And when he announced he was not going to be seeking reelection, that meant my job would be ending in a year when his term ended. Mm-hmm. My friends, my family, my colleagues, myself, everybody just assumed I would stay in the same lane that I was in. And I hired a coach. And Bree, she asked me a question that changed completely the trajectory of my life.
Let's hear it. I'm already excited to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. She said, Darcy, if you make a decision right now for what's next for this next chapter, and in 10 years you look back and had no regrets, what would you do? Oh my God. And what's crazy is how quickly the answer came. I was like, what would I do? I'd start my own company. It just immediately came. I would coach. I'd be a keynote speaker, right? I would do training and workshops. And she's like, great, let's do it. And as soon as she said, great, let's do it, that saboteur, right? I call it my inner trash talk. Like my thoughts immediately transition to that trash talk. You can't start your own business. You don't know how, right, to run a business. You don't even know what a P&L is. You don't know how to market. Plus, you have a family of 4 and you're the sole breadwinner. How in the world are you going to do that when you need a salary and stability and income and health insurance? So I didn't trust myself because I was listening to those sabotaging thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, you are so in line with so much that I try to work with as well. Those limiting beliefs and the fixed limitations, that's like one of my core development elements that I work with clients on as well, is like, how do we get past that trash talk, those sabotaging thoughts, those lies that we tell ourselves to protect ourselves, because we are human beings who instinctually want to stay protected. However, having evolved to where we're at in the world, we don't always need to be protecting ourselves with that to that degree, from all vulnerabilities. But that's what our limiting beliefs do, is they protect us from all vulnerabilities until we can find that trust or, be able to take that action or gain that confidence or garner that inner truth. There's so many spaces that we really need to fill in to understand that fight or flight is helpful when I'm in real danger, not when I'm in corporate danger.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Beautifully said, right? It is. And it's not that, you have to swing the pendulum all the way to, there's something out there. I love this term, toxic positivity, right? Like, everything's fine. I'm just going to be happy and I'm just going to embrace change. It's normal to have this inner trash talk. It's a part of our humanity.
Yes.
But what I was doing is I was giving it all the power. I was listening to it.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's where my coach helped me to be able, when you think about, you go to a professional, whatever, football game, and the players on the field, they aren't listening to the opposing team's fans trash talk, right? They aren't like, no, you stop it. Oh, wait, maybe I don't know how to kick the ball. They're just focused and choosing where to put their energy. That's what she helped me do, is to choose to focus on, okay, what do I control and what are my choices? Yep, I could listen to these thoughts that say I'm not ready to be or good enough to own a business, or I could choose a different perspective and a different path.
Mm-hmm. And, I love sort of this moment in time for you too, because this really plays on the decision-making portion. I say I like to do sort of 3 pieces in this podcast. That's development, decision-making, and dedication to purpose. And I always find in all my conversations, there is that pivotal decision for people, whether there's action taken or not. There is a moment in time that is often pivotal for people. Like you said, the question that she asked that changed your life. Maybe it wasn't in that moment that you said, okay, I'm dropping everything and I'm going full force into it, but you knew the impact that question had on you.
Yeah. It was a pivotal moment for sure.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of just keep on going right from there. Like from that moment, what was the progression of action for you?
Yeah. So I had from that moment a year before my job ended and I closed out the Senate office. And so part of what I did was set up a whole bunch of informational interviews with entrepreneurs and small business owners and people who I respected, who were doing what I envisioned I wanted to do. And I learned a ton. I learned so much. I also did informational interviews with potential clients, the people that I wanted to work with, to find out, is there a market for what I want? And will anybody hire me? And when I was able to gather that, I was blessed that I had that year to gather that data, to be able to know and feel confident that yes, there is a need for this, and to get just enough insights to be able to have the confidence to launch, to leap. For instance, in one of the conversations, I talked to a woman and she said, Darcy, you need to have an anchor client. And I'm like, what's an anchor client? She said that on day one of your business, you need to have a client that is going to pay you enough, an anchor client, that you don't have to be operating out of fear and worrying like, where am I going to be able to get my money to pay my mortgage or my health insurance? And so I worked really hard and I got a phenomenal anchor client that was a retainer for a year, that if I got no other business, I at least would not go bankrupt. We would not be homeless. And that was a piece of advice that I would never have known otherwise.
You know, and it's so funny because I have spoke with so many entrepreneurs at this point, or, you know, creators, developers, purposepreneurs up to this point. And this is the first time someone is bringing up an anchor client. And I think that is such incredible information. Like everyone listening and watching, an anchor client. I mean, your coach who told you that, or, you know, your mentor, whoever it was, really gave a piece of information that I feel like is not floating around as much as it should be.
Yes. And what it did is it gave me a specific goal to be able, right, to meet, to be able to launch. But then also it kept me out of this place of fear where am I going to get the money? And then, you know, you don't close deals when you're feeling desperate and you're operating out of a place of fear. So then instead, as I'm talking to potential clients and teams and organizations, I could really be more authentic to is this a good fit? Right. Am I the right match? Do we have chemistry? Instead of like trying to just like jerry rig and make the fit work.
Oh, that is just such great insight for people who are trying to do this. It's like, here is your first goal, you know, and it really offers that something to work towards that also just sets you up for complete success, at least in the very beginning. You know, it kind of gives you, because I have found that it, for so many people, it feels like, and for myself included, it can feel like you're holding your breath. Trying to, you know, hoping and trying and searching and trying to close deals or do whatever it might be. But that is just such a solid way to get started, the start. Wonderful.
It really did help. And then once I launched, so January 2nd, 2013 was my last day in the Senate. January 3rd, I officially launched Darcy Luoma Coaching and Consulting. And from there, it was probably, maybe 3 months in when I was overwhelmed. I had told my husband and designed with my family that the research shows that the majority of small businesses fail in the first 2 years. And so I said, I really want to go gonzo and focus hard on building my business. My husband was in, he was a full-time stay-at-home dad. He said, I got the home front. I got the food, the groceries, the snow blowing, the lawn, you go crazy. And what a gift, right? Absolutely. To be able to just focus. And I realized that was a huge gift that a lot of people, women, don't have. And so that allowed me to really be all in on my business. Well, within probably 3 months, I was overwhelmed. I'm doing prospecting. I'm sending out proposals. I'm doing agreements. I'm sending out invoices. I'm having to, deliver the services that I've sold.
Yeah.
And so that started the journey of then building my team. And it started with just one executive assistant, and then it built from there.
Okay, so let's start. We have our anchor client here, and you said within 3 months the growth just exploded. So we have the business growth, and then we also have your team growth. So for that business growth, was it just a matter, like you just got super prepared and just went full force, like you said, sort of went gone, so I love that? Or was it word of mouth from the anchor client, or marketing? I mean, what was that strategy specifically?
Yeah, I'd say there were probably two main things that were essential to my having early success.
Mm-hmm.
One is I had been in this community. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I had been here for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was very involved in the community and volunteer work. I spoke a lot for the senator. He was in Washington, D.C. Somebody wanted him. They got me. So I had a strong reputation and deep connections. And so I focused on starting to just network with no intention of pitching or doing sales, just building relationships and having coffee and having lunch and saying, here's what I'm doing. This is so exciting, right? And I just wanted to hear how things are. And that I think was essential. The other part of my strategy that I did, it's my business strategy now is a little bit different, but then I did a lot of speaking, and I did a lot of speaking for free or low dollar. And so I love doing presentations, keynotes, workshops. And there's, of course, a whole lot of associations. There's Rotary clubs, there's Chamber of Commerce's. There's all sorts of groups that are always looking for speakers.
Right.
And so that was I didn't do any other kind of marketing. I went out and spoke. And that, when it was a right fit and somebody liked my message and felt good chemistry, they would follow up afterwards.
Okay. Oh, that is super important too. So it was really, you were marketing yourself however you could, but the speaking was for sure a seed that you were planting in so many different places to be able to get those clients. And then you also, in the same time, were building your team, you said. So, and was that process very similar, or?
It was very intentional, Bree. So, brought on the first person, and then a year in, I realized it was a phenomenal problem to have, but I had so many coaching clients. I was exhausted. I was coaching all day long. And then on top of it, trying to go and do some team building workshops and retreats and throw in a couple of keynote speeches. So I hired a business coach. And I'd say that's one thing that I have consistently done. I hire people to help me overcome my obstacles and design accountability. So I hired a business coach, and he helped me articulate that I didn't want to turn down the faucet. I loved that there was a flow and abundance. I wanted to figure out how to help all these people without burning out, because I was burning out.
Right.
And so that's when then we decided to build a team. And so over that course of the year, we identified and created an RFP and a rubric, and did interviews. And so I brought on, at that time, 6 coaches and trainers to my team. They launched January of 2016. We had our 2-day retreat where we're telling what the philosophy of the business is, doing training, team building. And then from there, it has built, we use the traction model. Are you familiar with
you could definitely give us a high level overview.
Yeah. Traction is, and I'm not affiliated with them at all, but it's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. It's just a way to run your company. And when I found it, it was like, this is what I needed. It helps you to create your 10-year vision, your 1-year goals, your quarterly rocks. And so since then, I have added on a VP of learning experiences, what we call an integrator. She does all the business operations, a client relations specialist. I've got a graphic designer, a social media firm, a writer. so it built over time.
Okay, awesome. So there's a few things. First of all, thank you for telling us about that model too, because again, like, everyone's always looking for those gems or those pieces that, that kind of can change the whole structure. So that's definitely a great nugget of information there as well. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple things. First and foremost, I love that you got a business coach. And I say that because you are a coach yourself. You're doing coaching and consulting. And I think that there is this almost like a stigma around, if you're the expert, why are you seeking expert advice? And I always tell the story in becoming a therapist, going to school for counseling. It was like course number 1, our professor was like, everyone needs to go to therapy. I know you're all becoming therapists. You all need to get yourself a therapist. And it was one of those things where we all kind of looked around like, okay. And then they're like, no, this is actually important for 2 reasons. One, even an expert, can refine their expertise. So that is really one of those things that it's like, we can be an expert to an extent, but we can always continue to learn. So that piece I find is super important. The second is really putting yourself on the other side of the coin. As a coach, what it feels like to get coached. As a therapist, what it feels like to be in a counseling session. And I just love that, I'm finding the most powerful leaders that I bring on here and the people who are thriving in their businesses are, as you said, not doing it alone. They are seeking out help from other experts to be able to build up as best they can. So I just love that you sought out a business coach, and that is something that you said you have consistently had or for a period of time.
Almost always I have a coach of some fashion, and we can't see our blind spots,
right?
And on top of it, dentists need dentists, right?
Right.
So there's so many reasons, and it's interesting that you shared that story about when you were training to be a therapist, because I designed the professional coaching certificate at UW-Madison, and one of the requirements is for everybody who goes into that program, they have to hire their own coach. And in both the coaching and the counseling therapy profession, your use of self is your most important tool that you have. You might have a whole toolbox of assessments and future self and all sorts of stuff, but the use of self is the most important tool you have. So I can't underscore that enough. Work on yourself. And I will say, I also have had many therapists, right? I'm a huge fan. And depending on where I'm at, it will, and what my needs are, it will either be a therapist or a coach.
Yes, absolutely. And, everyone knows here that I'm always, pumping the power of therapy and counseling and coaching as well. Like, it all, depending on what your needs are and circumstances in your life right now, seeking out that extra set of ears, honestly, someone to see your blind spots, someone to be able to just be a reflective individual in your life. I say that, anything in the helping profession in general, it's like you have a mirror that you can speak to. It's unbiased. It's just the mirror is listening, reflecting what you're saying, and then helping you understand what you're saying in a new way.
That's right.
So,
and I think you can get there on your own by listening to podcasts and reading books, and right. Absolutely. And when you have a therapist, when you have a coach, when you have somebody you are partnering with, you're going to get better results faster. You just are. You think about Michael Phelps. He's going to be a phenomenal swimmer no matter what. You look at the way he is built, right? And yet he would not be the most decorated Olympian without having a coach, or in his case, many coaches. So that's, I think, one of the most important things to remember. It's not that you can't do it on your own. It's just going to be so much more effective and get you to another level by having that partner.
1000%. I love the idea of the athletic coaching too, because I feel like that is what helps it stick or land for people when they think, oh, okay, yeah, like the best of the best they're getting to be the best by having someone help them become the best. So I just love to drive that point home. So for everyone out there who is really going full force into entrepreneurship, getting a business coach is 100%, I think, recommended by most people. Obviously, there's the hurdle of money, and that's the hurdle that we always have to go through in entrepreneurship. But in building something, it's what is the ROI? If you're putting this in, what are you getting in return? And you're actually most likely going to, as you said, get results faster with someone. So you can, if faster results, if you can, spin that into what that looks in terms of monetization for you, then work it out that way. But coaching is for sure recommended. Yeah. Okay. And I also, so kind of going back a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about, you said that your sort of marketing strategy has changed a bit from the very beginning where you were doing the speaking and everything. So, I mean, you've been in business for 9 years now, or right? Am I 9 years? Yes. Yeah. So congratulations. That's also a huge, major milestone. So yeah, what has changed and transformed there in that business path for you?
Yeah. So I am much more intentional. And right. So that's a biggest thing. Whereas before it's like, oh, you need a speaker. Oh, okay. I'd say yes to everything.
Yes.
Much more intentional, first of all. Also, probably one of the other things has changed is I now speaking is actually a line of business, and I am paid as a professional speaker. So I will sometimes do pro bono, if it either touches my heart and it's really aligned with my value, or if it is the right audience of decision makers, then I will. But otherwise, the biggest change is I now, that's a line of business, and I'm a professional speaker, and I get paid. It still is part of a strong marketing tool for us, because anytime I speak, we fill the pipeline.
Right.
In addition, we are now the first year, this is a tip for somebody who's just starting. I didn't collect any names or addresses, email addresses. I didn't build a CRM. I lost so much. So now we are very intentional of having lead gens, right? So a lead gen is something that you exchange, something that's really good, high value, that you give to somebody in exchange for their contact information. And it creates a filter. If somebody is like, oh, I want that, chances are they're going to be a good fit. If they're like, I don't want that. Well, you don't want them in your database anyway, because right. You want to build it of people who are really aligned with what your values and passion are. And so that's one thing. We're very intentional about having that lead gen. And then also we do regular social media. We've got a firm. We do social media posts 7 days a week. We've chosen 4 platforms that we focus on. We have a weekly Thoughtfully Fit Tips newsletter and blog. And then every Thursday I go live on a video for Thoughtfully Fit Thursdays, where I'm sharing what are the hurdles and the obstacles that people get in the way, that we find, my team and I, when we're working with individuals and teams, and sharing that with others. So we are just more consistent and thoughtful in what content we are putting out. And we try to hard to have it be really high value content.
Awesome. And I love that, because it's the more you put out the free content, the more people start to actually, it's funny, it's like reverse psychology, because you're like, oh, why am I going to put out really high value free content? Don't I want people to pay for this? But when people see that you're putting out high value free content, you're actually garnering trust from potential clients. And so that is really where that comes in. Something that I've been learning a lot about as well, trying to implement a lot of these strategies that you're talking about, and being intentional in really providing high value to my very specific niche audience, to be able to get those clients to come in. Also,
absolutely. Yeah, please. Sorry.
No, please.
I was just going to add on to that. Like we're in this digital age, and content wants to be free. And so what people will pay for is then, how do I make this content come alive? What's I want you to reflect back and poke holes and point out blind spots, and state the hard truth and do team building exercises, right? The interaction that's something you can't get from clicking on a YouTube video.
Absolutely.
So it took me a long time to get past that. Like, we're giving away so much value. But it does build trust and let people see like, oh, I like this and I want more. I want to go deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It is. It's like, why? I don't want to give away all my secrets, but but actually that's what you need to do because you are the secret. You as the coach or you as the value offerer, you are the secret. So there's no amount of information that can really be given for someone to take. Sure, people can take it and run with it, but you are the key. You are the main person who can really help get them there. So that's how I try to use it anyway. Okay, we're moving right along here, and you mentioned Thoughtfully Fit. I really want to go into Thoughtfully Fit and the development of it, everything about it. Let's just jump right into it. So, talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah, in a nutshell, we started finding, my team and I started noticing that every client we worked with had similar problems, similar challenges that they brought in. It doesn't matter what their goal was. They were struggling with the same hurdles, different flavor, different people, different details. So we spent 5 years researching and categorizing all of the obstacles and the challenges that we were working through with people. And what the result was our Thoughtfully Fit model. And so it's got six top hurdles that get in the way of being high performing.
Okay.
And the Thoughtfully Fit is the model to say, if you can handle yourself thoughtfully through those challenges, you're going to be able to get back to doing what you do best. Whereas if you have these hurdles, these challenges, and you are reacting on autopilot, you're overreacting, you're silently stewing, and you aren't addressing them in a thoughtful way, now, instead of getting back to what you do best, you are having to clean up the mess from hitting reply all in a moment of anger, right? From being in this knee-jerk reaction, or the energy and the resentment of silently stewing, that you can't be focused on what you do. So that was the creation of Thoughtfully Fit.
Awesome. Wow. I love the premise. I think for sure you nailed it. Like, there's definitely places that we work ourselves up in, and we can't get sort of over that hump. So I love that you're offering guidance in that. So Thoughtfully Fit has become very much your brand, and you're doing this is what you're doing most of your coaching and consulting on, or is it workshops, programs? I know you have a book as well. Is it the whole nine?
All of it.
All of
yep,
it.
All of it. So, and that took us years to figure out. And I was going to some professional conferences. I'm a member of the National Speakers Association. And I remember, it was probably like 7 years ago, somebody said, if you really want to be an expert in your field and you really want to be a thought leader, you have to have your own model, your own intellectual property. And at that time, I was going out and delivering the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I was delivering the 5 to 7. I was delivering everybody else's content. And so, and that became the journey to research and develop the model. And the book just came out in June.
Congratulations.
To transition. What's that?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The book,
yes.
That's amazing.
Oh my God, it was quite a journey, right? And now everything we do is grounded in Thoughtfully Fit, whether it's team assessments and retreats, whether it is organization development consulting or workshops or coaching. It's all grounded in that model.
It's all grounded. And what did that 5 years of research look like? Like what this might not be the most fun to talk about, but really interesting, especially I love that you said like becoming a thought leader, because that is it's like this space where you're not necessarily developing a product in the entrepreneurial space, but you're developing an idea, a model, that can become your platform, but
yes.
Really sort of tough to pull out the tangibles. So I'd love to hear what that looked like.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that was an intense process, and being in it, I felt like I would never get to the other side.
Wow.
Right. And so that's where having the resilience and the grit and the focus and the discipline, like if you are in a place right now where you're listening saying like, oh, I don't even know what do I want my intellectual property, like, that's okay. Like, that's okay. I didn't know either. And
Yeah.
so staying with it and doing that research, and then really focusing on what you love. I will say this model I designed because I've been a lifelong athlete, and I know that when I train and practice, being physically fit, I feel better, right? If I go do a triathlon and I haven't trained and practiced, it's miserable and I get injured. In the same way, in order to handle your life, your relationships thoughtfully, you need to train and practice. It doesn't just naturally come. And so I learned to trust myself. And again, early on in the development of this model, I kept getting feedback from people saying, nobody knows what thoughtfully fit is. You got to have a different name, a different brand. But in my heart, it's like, no, this is it. This works. And I feel like that's a place where you have to, like, there's other feedback I got that I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. This is a place where I just kept trusting myself, because there was such a strong draw to this concept and the metaphor. And so we developed the model and officially launched it into the world in March of 2016. It was 2.5 months after we launched my team of coaches and consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 5 days later. I don't even know why I'm going here, but here I am. It was 5 days later that I got a phone call from my neighbor, and she said, Darcy, what is going on at your house? I don't know. I'm not home. Why? There are 40 or 50 police cars. There's a SWAT team. They're surrounding your house in guns, and they just took your husband out in handcuffs. He was barefoot. He wouldn't look at us. What? Oh. John, what are you talking about? It was the most intense time of my life. It was the biggest nightmare I've ever experienced, Bree. It wasn't even a nightmare. I'd never had a nightmare that bad. I found out later that my husband was arrested for sexual assault of a minor he had met online. He was put in jail that night. It was the first time my daughters had been without their dad, and he never came home. He was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. And so for me, all of a sudden, and the charges were so severe that I had to hire my own attorney. And my attorney said, Darcy, don't talk to anybody about anything. I mean, I didn't even tell my parents. 5 days later, he's like, wait, you haven't called your parents? I'm like, you told me not to talk. Yeah. Well, okay, you can talk to your parents. And so I became ground zero to test drive Thoughtfully Fit. It had just been finalized on Saturday. He was arrested on Thursday. And to be able to, because I now was in a place where I had all the challenges and obstacles I was researching and helping clients with, now I had times 100.
Wow. Well, first and foremost, Darcy, I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing that. And I know no matter what type of experience we have, reliving it through the story can be just as difficult. So I genuinely appreciate you sharing that with me and my listeners. My goodness, that had got to be one of the wildest things, because it's like, here you are, you have developed this thing, and now you're like, oh, I'm in it. I'm in it, and I have to figure out. I'm the test pilot. Yeah, I'm the first. I'm my first client to see if this works.
It's not a good go-to-market strategy. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, there's got to be some workarounds for some of us. But man, life happens though, and that's one of those things where it's like we never know when life is going to happen to us and when it's going to happen hard. And just hearing that you and your family went through that at a time where you're actually peaking in your career, getting over hitting this major milestone. And then in the other, I say it's the waves of life. And you think in your professional career, you are at the top of the wave in that point. But in your personal life, it's like you are right in that valley there.
Rock bottom, devastation,
Devastation.
complete devastation.
My
Absolutely.
Goodness. Wow. I mean, I just can't even, everything for you must have, I feel like kind of just came full force. It's like, which way do you go from there in those moments? But you kept moving forward is what you did. That seems to be,
yeah. And this is where, so at the core of the model, Thoughtfully Fit. So we've got the 6 hurdles and the 6 practices, right? Mm-hmm. But at the core of the model, so just like if you're physically fit and you have a strong core, every movement's easier. Mm-hmm. But you can't just do 20 sit-ups once a month and expect to get a strong core. So thankfully, I had been training and practicing a long time as I was developing, researching this model. And so when my life blew up, the core is 3 simple steps: pause, think, act. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden now, when I get a call from the mom saying, if I find out there are any pictures of my daughter, I'm sending the mafia to your house. Okay, my first reaction, that sabotaging thought, was like, oh my God, are you kidding? I just wanted to lash out. I was like taken off guard. I was blindsided. Mm-hmm. And I had to pause in the moment and think, oh my gosh, she's scared. Her daughter was at our house a lot under my ex-husband's supervision. So with that awareness of pausing and thinking, I could act thoughtfully and not blow up and not act on those sabotaging thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. And it's something you can train and practice right now, every day, right? When you get an email and you're caught off guard and somebody's criticizing you and you want to pound out your pause. Okay, think. How do I want to show up here? What will neutralize this, right? What is the best version of myself? What will I say here that I won't regret tomorrow morning? And then act thoughtfully.
And act. It is so simple, yet so central to how we should be moving about our lives in this world. With everything. I mean, it's just the thoughtfulness. It's the intentionality behind that very simple 3 steps. And I think for me and for many people, it's that pause. It is actually setting the 3 steps into motion with the pause, which is where so many of us might hurdle right over without even realizing.
Absolutely. And you think about, you learn any new sport, the first thing you learn is how to stop, whether it's downhill skiing or rollerblading or ice hockey, or right, you learn how to stop. That pause, you're right, is so critical because it gets you off of that autopilot knee-jerk reaction so that you can think and then put a little bit of space in between the stimulus and response.
I'm just thinking about the cycle and how actually I feel like many people might do it backwards. They act and then they think about what they just did and then they're speechless. and then they're in a state of, oh my gosh, total pause because they don't know what to do.
That is beautiful. Absolutely.
So now that we know there is actually a way that this goes, it's pause, think, act, not act, think, pause.
Yeah, I love that.
It's beautiful, it's simple, it's so tangible and such a great way. I mean, and I love that Thoughtfully Fit, just the anchor of that. I just think it is such a great premise. I love that also, as you said, it's sort of grounded, you being an athlete your whole life, the fitness part. I love that. I love that we can have a fit mind as well as a fit body. We can have fit thoughts and, a fit self, not just fitness in terms of muscle and endurance and that type of thing.
Beautifully said.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I just love, I hope others are really internalizing that. And I will obviously put up all of Darcy's information and the Thoughtfully Fit information so you can find out more. Darcy, we are just getting, we're in the last 10 minutes here, so wrapping up. I love to first, before we go into the rapid fire round and before I leave the floor to you for some final thoughts, purpose is a huge part. We spoke of the podcast, but I'm finding it's just such a huge part in entrepreneurial journeys, in our personal and professional journeys. Finding purpose is something that I have found to be central to so much of what we do for longevity and for success personally and professionally. And I would just love to know purpose for you. What does it mean? What does it look like? Just let me hear your thoughts on what purpose is.
I almost think if I really overly simplify it, if you have a Venn diagram, you have two circles. Yeah. It's like where they overlap, what your passion is with what your expertise and skills are. And to me, that is when I realized, like, every time I was in a meeting for the senator, I was with a meeting of a group of constituents and lobbyists, and they'd be talking about some policy and some legislative agenda. And I'd be sitting there thinking, well, she hasn't said anything. I wonder if we had done introductions, or maybe if she was sitting at the table instead of on the back row. I was thinking about the people dynamics, right? And so to me, I once I realized, like, that's where I go naturally. That's my expertise, my skill set. And I'm passionate about how do you create a space for people to be high performing. That to me is how I realized my true purpose.
I love that. That's, you know what, you want to know what, it is so similar to my definition of purpose, which I love that you kind of brought in the skills part, because now I'm thinking, like, oh, that might be what this is. My equation is when passion meets people, or, you know, people can also be the environment or animals or whatever it is outside of yourself. So bringing what you're passionate about, bringing that fire inside of you to the rest of the world, and, you know, figuring out how to let that fire burn in them too, in your own
and
way.
Partially I put the skills and expertise in there because, like, I would love to be an Olympic athlete. I'd love to be a professional triathlete. My skills they're not at that level. So right, that instead I just do that as a hobby, and that's not what I've chosen as my purpose professionally to put out in the world.
Right. I love that. The skills, there's definitely there is definitely room in that equation for the skills. That is such an awesome and solid definition. Okay, we've got 6 minutes. So we're gonna move right through here. Rapid fire on the 3 sectors that I've mentioned several times: development, decision making, dedication to purpose. The first is development. Currently, in this very moment, are you working more on personal development or professional development?
Oh my God, I'm a junkie, so I'm always working on both. And I'd say at this moment, professional development. We're working in January, we do our annual retreat for our business and identify what our goals are for the year and our quarterly rocks. Okay. So that's probably top of mind right now.
Got it. I love it. And, you know, they're so interchangeable. That's really what my whole practice is built on, is that personal and professional development can't really be unintertwined. So,
right.
But I love to just kind of see what people are doing right now. Okay, decision making. Do you make most of your decisions based on choice or guiding voice? Choice meaning numbers, you're definitive. Guiding voice mean you look more for intuition, spirituality, gut feeling, etc.
I would say historically in the past, I made it on choice. Okay. Right. What are the numbers? Who wants me? Yeah. What are the options? And I have grown and evolved with the help of therapy and coaches, and to trust myself more in my gut, and to really listen to that voice, like thoughtfully fit. If I had listened to the numbers and the feedback, I wouldn't have pursued it. But the voice was so strong for me driving that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the guiding voice piece. All right. And then finally, dedication to purpose. Is this a singular moment in time or a daily practice?
Oh, it's a daily, it's who I am. It's what right? Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, my vision and the purpose I have is that we create a world that is thoughtfully fit. When you look at the protests and the civil unrest, it's in, you know, and the movements and all of the political polarities, if we could handle ourselves thoughtfully when we disagree, I think the world would be a better place. So that purpose I am living every every day.
Every day. I love to hear that. And I think, it speaks volumes about who you are and what you're doing. And it is so clear. I know it's coming through the screen. I am sure it's coming through the screen to the audience as well. Okay, we just have just a couple minutes left. I want you to be able to leave listeners with your final thoughts and also let everyone know where they can find you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Bree.
Of course.
This time went so fast. You are just delightful. And I love your vision, your purpose, what you put out in the world. If anybody is interested, my website is darcyluoma.com. And you can look at that, even just go through the lens of an entrepreneur to see how I've designed and structured my services. And then if anybody wants, I talked about the 6 hurdles.
Yes.
What are those top obstacles after coaching tens of thousands of hours, my coaching team and I found? If you go to thoughtfullyfit.com, there's a free quiz.
Okay.
It's 2 or 3 minutes. It'll spit out your biggest hurdle, the top hurdle, and then you'll get some strategies on how you can clear that hurdle, how you can start to train and practice. And I'm also role modeling a lead gen, right? That's for somebody who's inspired and sparked and is like, I want more of Thoughtfully Fit. When you take that quiz, then I will put you on my mailing list so that you get my weekly email update and you can unsubscribe at any time.
I love it. Darcy, thank you so, so much. The value you have brought to this very quick hour. I mean, an hour is an hour, but that was a quick hour. It just absolute incredible value. I'm so lucky and thankful to have had you on the podcast. I know listeners definitely are going to love this episode and get so much out of it. So thank you again. Darcy Luoma, everyone. Genuinely, it has been a pleasure. As I end all of my podcasts, until next time, let this be the moment. Thank you so much, Darcy. Genuinely, what a great conversation. I'm so, you are amazing.
You are so good at being like having a structure, but just being in the moment and allowing the conversation.
Thank you.
And that is